with me and my family for the rest of our lives. It will remind me what happens when hatred in society goes unchallenged and people who hate are not stopped. On the 29th of April 2013, my father, Mohammed Saleem, 82 years old, was singled out and murdered on the very road he lived on for over 30 years. The motive for his death was allegedly because he was brown and dressed like a Muslim. He was followed home from the mosque after late evening prayers at 10 p.m. by a cowardly right-wing neo-Nazi terrorist who'd only been in the country for less than a week. He was then stabbed 3 times from behind. Surprisingly, the perpetrator was awarded a work placement in Smallheath, which is where my parents live, an area densely populated by Muslims for many years. A known racist neo-Nazi in Ukraine who was allowed to enter this country unchecked to complete a campaign of terror and murder. Why single out Dad? Simply because my dad was a Muslim and for no other reason. A practicing Muslim with a beard and someone who's devout to following the teachings of Islam by performing their 5 daily prayers. The devastation of the death of our father and our family has been overwhelming. To even comprehend where our father went through bleeding to death on the road is devastating, let alone trying to understand how someone could have such hatred for an 82-year-old man. The fact remains my father was targeted for being a Muslim. He was followed home and killed. Pavlo Lapshin from the Ukraine is serving 40 years for my father's murder and the 3 mosque bombings in the West Midlands. These were all acts of terrorism and he was charged under the Terrorism Act. Yet to this day, the media, the police, the government have not treated Pavlo like they would if the terrorist was a Muslim. You all remember when Lee Rigby was murdered, rest in peace. The murder received global coverage. But when my father was killed in a similar terrorist attack just 3 weeks before, his murder barely received any media coverage and there wasn't any condemnation from the government, MPs or the police. You ask yourself, if a single individual was going around and placing bombs outside churches, what would be the reaction in this country? Is the Muslim community any different? Do we not deserve the same protection and rights? Why? Because the label of terrorism is more widely associated with Muslims and Islam. I'm here today to address the pressing issue of Islamophobia and its increase over the last few years, much of which has been perpetrated by the sensationalised media headlines and the general bias against Muslims in news reports and treatment within the legal system. My father was attacked because he was a Muslim, not because he was Asian, but because of his faith. Islamophobia is rife, and Islamophobic attacks continue to rise, fueled by sensationalized headlines run by the media and also by the government stance on treating all Muslims as terrorists. Muslims are constantly portrayed as fanatics and extremists in the media. What hope is there for our kids and generations to come if we don't make a stand against all forms of hate? Islamophobia has to stop, and no one person should be victimized or stereotyped because of their faith. Muslims should be embraced and respected like every other person in our inclusive society. We are the same and no different. I applaud the work that Stop the War Coalition are doing to address Islamophobia within this country and the impact they're making across the country. Stop the War has been at the forefront of pointing out that Islamophobia has dire international consequences. It has been used to legitimize endless brutal foreign wars which only fuel further hostilities, cruelty and hatred between people. The US, UK and Saudi Arabian policy of endless war has led to more extremism, more Islamophobia, more division. It has led to an ever-expanding conflict with no end in sight, only new tragic episodes. The bombing and the war in Yemen are a direct result of this policy of endless war. It is time the mainstream media and government and society places more importance on this growing problem. I'll always continue to speak up against Islamophobia so no one else goes through a situation that me and my family went through. Thank you very much.